Hello and welcome back to another Player 2 video review discussion. And for the first time in a long time, it's me and someone other than Player 2 quote-unquote legend Matt Hewson. I'm joined by PopCulturist legend Ryan Betson. How are you, mate?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm very well.
I appreciate the rub. I say PopCulturist legend, there's only like 3 of us, so like it's really easy.
Well, I mean, last man standing. Do you want to go with that?
Yeah, pretty much. Because the other 2 had to bounce out. We've got newies and stuff. But yeah, no, it's been a little while since we've done. The last thing we did was Ratchet on for the players.
We did a Ratchet
I think
preview, I think, and then obviously I came across and spoke about it a little bit there as well. That's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been great to do these little little review cut-off things with you because we've done a handful. We did like Story of Seasons, and then we also did
Ratchet, and then for Final Fantasy 7 and
and then we did Sakuna as well.
Yep.
So it's like it's almost like we seem to just come together to do these little snip things when we find cool little side games that we really love, and we just have to talk about it somehow.
Yeah, we need an outlet, and we've created one. We've just
these little bite-sized episodes.
You want to talk about Kane and Bridge of Spirits? Yeah, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, done.
Family's pissed off out of the house. Let's go. So as I just highlighted, we are talking about Kane and Bridge of Spirits for everyone listening on podcast feeds there that's just heard us rambling for a little while. Video people, it should be crystal clear at this point. We've both been playing Kane and Bridge of Spirits. Thank you. Wait, did you guys receive a code? I better make sure.
No, I picked it up myself. I picked it up myself. Yeah. Shout out to my Patreon supporters for helping me fund this one, actually. So shout out to them.
And thanks to Ember Lab for the code that we received. There's a review already up on the Play 2 website. You've spoken about it on FTP for the players, the PopCulturist PlayStation podcast. But we're going to have our own little review discussion here, talk about the ins and outs of the game and what we generally think about it.
Yeah, man.
Betson.
Fucking king.
We're going to talk about story a little bit later on because that's something that's hit both of us right between the eyes. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the gameplay stuff. And there's been a lot of talk from a lot of people in the written reviews, hell, even in my own written review, that the game does feel old in some senses, but not necessarily in a bad way. People have been talking about it feeling a bit like a PS2 game. Where do you stand on that whole thing?
I agree with you, but I think it's an absolute win.
Yeah.
I mean that in terms of what I didn't realize that I was wanting at the moment was this great little simple 3D-esque platformer, sort of, right? And that's essentially what it was. So it had all the simplicities of a PS2 game, but with the wrappings of this next-gen game. And like it ticked for me, that's amazing. So like I didn't have to worry about unnecessarily large skill trees. I didn't have to think about all these different button combos.
Yeah, like pretty basic.
Yeah, and it took all that simplistic gameplay of the PS2, and it really allowed time to focus on the graphics, which is its selling point, and the story, which we'll talk about later. So, for me, I don't see that as a hindrance at all. If anything, I see that as an incredible breath of fresh air. Breath of fresh air in this. As games get more and more complicated, and we look the likes of your Assassin's Creed, which are just bloated as shit.
Systems on top of systems.
Just layer on layer on layer on layer. Where here it's like, this is it. This is how it works. We add a couple little things as you go, but then there's also a Metroidvania aspect of it. Come back later when you've got that, and we can do something cool over here. Like, it's a big old win for me.
Yeah. You highlighted there, and I mentioned in the review, it does feel like a bit of a PS2 or late PS1, early PS2 sort of game there in terms of some of the, as you said, the simplicity they're kind of shooting for in terms of the mechanics. It's not a very complicated game. The platforming is a little bit rough in a few points. I'm sure you probably found yourself jumping at platforms expecting, hey, I can get up here. Like my jump takes me this far, but there's an invisible wall that pushes you back. I'm like, oh, haven't dealt with one of those in a while. The jumping itself, especially the double jump, it's a little too vertical for my liking. More like, I guess if I draw the comparison, it's more like a Luigi jump to a Mario jump, I suppose. But those minor gripes aside, like the systems they've pulled on come together in a cohesive whole. They feel really good, but they're not overstaying their welcome. They're not too excessive. The combat can be a little bit challenging at points.
That's the one.
Back and forth. We got our asses kicked a few times.
That was one of the things. I found the difficulty scaling in this to be a little bit weird. I mean that in terms of, so I played it primarily on Spirit mode, which is the middle, difficulty, the normal difficulty, and I found that like every enemy ever, even like the mini bosses, quote unquote, no problem at all. Second I get into a boss fight, I am decimated. Like, not even
I
so
even
much
found
as
some
they
of the mini bosses. There was a couple of mini bosses that really, really messed me up too.
yeah,
But
so it's
I
like
do
not
follow what you mean.
yeah, so it's not it was like there was such an escalation point at certain times. I'm like, how, and then I was like, all right, well, I'll scale it back. So I scale it back down to the story mode, and then I obliterate the boss in like one go.
Yeah,
So like
it's actually it's not really balanced at all.
yeah, the
The difference
differential between the two of
normal
them is
and
bad.
I don't know the story mode. Normal and story. That's basically easy, and normal is massive. Like you don't need to worry about parrying. You don't need to worry about dodging. You can just run up to them and wail on them if you want to play in story, which I have since finishing the game because now I'm just running around trying to chase down collectibles and all that sort of stuff. 100% exploited the game to get that master difficulty trophy.
It's been patched out now because I was hoping to get it like before, but
Is there a way that you could delete and then redown the game? No, probably not. Oh, well, missed the boat.
oh well.
Just get good, mate.
Yeah, I'll try.
But yeah, I mean, the difficulty was a little bit of a concern in terms of that gulf between the two levels. With story mode being way too easy and then normal, as you said, kind of kicks your teeth in a little bit. And I'm
Only in
horrified by the
specific
prospect of going
scenarios.
up.
Like throughout the main world itself, I never got like taken out by goons or nothing.
Yeah,
It was
the top 10 enemies are
only
right.
that huge escalation between the, and I guess that's
Difficulty
kind of
spikes.
that is a little bit PS2y. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're really doubled down on it by accident, I guess. Because
Yeah,
like
I
that,
doubt it was by design,
yeah.
but
Well,
I don't
and the
know.
other thing I found as well is that there was one of the modern trappings that I think it would have benefited from would be essential like a mix of iframes and
Yeah,
attack cancellations, right? So what I would find is there were times where I would, in the quickness of combat, I would hold down the left, L2 to ready the bow, and then R2 to sort of launch.
yeah.
But if I, hold down R2 to pull the arrow. But if I was to let go of L2 before R2, even by a millisecond, it cancels the shot completely.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So the
Yeah, I'm
amount
with
of
you.
times, especially when there was some little when you're activating chests or whatever, and you get something done in a time limit, having that cancel the shot
Would have been really handy.
was really inconvenient actually,
Or would have,
because
sorry,
like
it would have been, I should say.
yeah, so like it would have been really nice to go. So if I let go of that, it should just shoot the arrow, right? Because if I've got it fully cocked and then I just happen to let go, minor nitpick there.
Yeah.
But additionally, I found that when it came down to the other way as well, right? So say I'm attacking and then a wave comes at me, like one of those energy waves that the boss do, and I need to cancel that attack animation to go into a block or a parry or even a jump, or
So, yeah,
it
some
doesn't.
sort of evasive
It
thing.
didn't let you. It didn't let you. It had to see the attack animation through, so you instantly getting taken out.
I guess it's a bit soulsy in that sense. Now, not something like
But even
Bloodborne
Soulsy
or
has
something.
Soulsy
They
has
have
that.
some sort of.
They have
the
that
iframes.
cancellation.
They don't. Oh, geez. I guess you're testing my knowledge of Souls a little bit there. I was fairly confident they had the iframes, but not necessarily.
Iframe.
Sorry,
My understanding is
invisibility
yeah.
frames for anyone unaware.
Invincibility
of
frame.
what
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, invincibility frames. Like they do have like some of them have them, but here it did feel very timing, right? And it's sometimes it felt as if the game would just go, you got hit.
Yeah.
Like, like the same motion, the same jump, like, dash out of the way or whatever, and it would, or roll out of the way, and then it would just decide to hit me that time. And like that did get me quite frustrated, especially when we're going into these big boss fights where it's like, I know we're nitpicking here, but like when you go into this big boss fight
That's all
and
we
they're
can
already
do, really.
yeah, and
That's all we can do.
they're already decimating you, and then you're finding that you're trying to do just a simple evasive and it kicks out. It's insane. Or if you've gone to swing for a light attack and then the wave comes and you go quick shield, and I'm pressing that button and nothing's happening.
Yeah, it takes too long to activate
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah,
You're right
Well,
with nitpicking, but that's really all we can do when it comes to like it's incredibly polished. It plays really, really well. It's really
Yeah.
enjoyable. I mean, it didn't outstay its welcome in that sense. I don't
Yeah.
know how long. I suppose everyone's mileage might vary depending on how desperate you are to collect the trophy. Sorry, the achievements. Sorry, the collectibles, I should say. As you progress versus what I'm personally doing, which is all right. I finished the game and now I'm going back and I'm trying to clean up currently as we still speak. But yeah, it didn't outstay its welcome.
No,
I
certainly
feel like I
not.
was still being challenged in the way they drip fed. So whether it's the bombs being included, or the arrows, or that dash move, all those sort of little things, they came through at just the right pace. Gave you enough time to learn about what they are, how they work, and then they force you into using them fairly quickly so that you kind of get your head around that concept, and then eventually it all kind of comes together in this one cohesive whole where you're looking to use all of those abilities on top of Kana's inherent, light attacks or heavy attacks, or the shield parry, or any of those sorts of things. They really paced it quite well, I thought.
Yeah, because it did hit a lot of those like beats of like you've got your new thing, you're in this area, everything in this area reflects that new power. Then you go into the next area, which gets you to combine them together with your previous abilities, and then you introduce a new one and then combine them together again. And I quite like that because it's once again what I was wanting out of this game, which I didn't realize I wanted until I started playing it, was that simplistic, really good, like really easy playable game that I just happened to enjoy front to back. That's kind of what I wanted, and I got exactly that. So I can't fault it in any way.
So, changing beats, moving on from the gameplay side of it to the visual side of things. And again, we'll get to the story dead last. Holy shit, does this game look and sound good?
This game is fantastic. It looks incredible, which makes complete sense. As I'm sure everyone has reported on it everywhere ever now about Ember Lab being an animation studio before they stepped into games, and like that does come across as well. Like the game looks absolutely fantastic. They have that almost chibi-esque Pixar-y style to it. So it's like the exaggerated eyes and like the little humans. You see little children. They have big puffy cheeks and stuff, and so it does hit that
the exaggerated look.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. So in a world in where realism is becoming more and more prevalent in game design, having something that really just kind of goes, yeah, this is cool. So like one of the things that like Ratchet and Clank got praised for, so Rift Apart specifically got praised for, was it looks like a Pixar movie. Nah, it looks like shit compared to this. This looks like a Pixar movie.
Yeah, this is the closest we've come. And yeah, I mean, you obviously mentioned their pedigree. Please, people, go check out A Terrible Fate, the Majora's Mask fan film that they made beforehand, which is still, I mean, that's chilling, that thing. The way they deliver, that's awesome. But yeah, you can see the years of expertise that have kind of shone through here in the final product. The game looks amazing. The way you look at Kana when she's in conversation or something like that, but even just sometimes during gameplay, the animations you see in her face, the way it moves and contorts at various different times, like it all just looks so real in that sense, despite the fact that there is still this exaggerated Pixar DreamWorks style animation flair involved.
And that does flow out into the world itself in terms of the world design. Like aesthetically, it's brilliant. Like everything fits together well, like it should. Like all the little details in the village really make it feel like previously lived in. Wink.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like there's all these. The world itself is just beautifully designed.
Yeah. No, like really smartly designed too.
Yeah, smartly designed.
Like there's but also stunning.
Yeah, it's like even it's small details, the way foliage sits, the way like the rocks sit, like all these little things in the world, like how it's structured, everything about it, just sort of, it felt very purposefully built.
Yeah, I guess,
and that's what I love about it.
The only thing, and this is again nitpicking, and probably kind of petty on my part as well. The game looks stunning. The animations are beautiful, so I couldn't help but notice when I'd walk through tufts of grass and they were just static things. They wouldn't move, like they wouldn't part as I moved through. It was just one of those things. Like it looks a 10 out of 10 in every other way, and then this one thing sticks out like a sore thumb in contrast, which was painful.
I only had one animation problem, and that was there was a chest that I went to open, and the Kina then turned around and then stood in one place and did that whole like completely still slide back to the chest. Only once that I had that problem. Everything else was no concern at all. But yeah, like I didn't sort of notice those details. The only thing I did notice, because I was playing it in because there's multiple modes, wasn't there?
Yeah. No. Is there?
I don't know.
I can't say that I paid attention. I think there is. There's like the equivalent of your performance and fidelity modes.
As a result, the big thing I noticed was the clear change in frame rate between gameplay and cinematic. Like visually, they looked very similar. So like I wasn't like, you can tell, like back to PS2, like, oh, you can tell that's a cutscene. they looked fantastic. And they did have an extra level of polish on the cutscene, so you could notice that. But they were so they were so similar, it didn't actually cause any major detriment. However, yeah, that noticeable transition in frame rate was one of the big things that.
It
Now
was
I don't
jarring.
expect them to. Yeah, it wasn't jarring in like ooh. It was like oh okay.
It was, yeah, I say jarring in the sense like they've gone from kind of what we expect in games to a filmic sort of frame
Yeah.
rate, and there's a difference in frame rates that are required for film versus they are for what they are for games, and
Even if it's a transition from 30 to 24 or whatever, right?
yeah, like it just sticks out,
Yeah.
not in any horrible way, and your eyes adjust almost immediately because we're pretty comfortable with films and all that sort of thing, but it was noticeable. All right. Actually, the other half, I guess, is even just the way the game sounds. I wouldn't say it's
Yeah.
necessarily the most revolutionary or extraordinary soundtrack, but it all just fits.
Yeah, it's like that cool kind of like pan fluty, like little drum soundy things in the villages and stuff was a big thing for me, and it just sort of hit in this cool place. It just once again, it just felt purposely fit, and like even something as simple when you found a rot and you get that little like xylophone like
Yeah.
yeah, like I thought I would get so sick of that sound by the end, and like 100 rots later, I still dug it.
Yeah. Have you got 100?
I don't think max is 100. I think I'm like seeing like
Oh,
70 something.
Yeah, okay. You might even be further along than me. But I'm up to that point now where I'm just chasing them all down.
Yeah, so when I hit certain, like I would just sort of scan the areas I went through I didn't go like out of my way to completely clear an area before I went onto it, but I would just kind of like scout little corners, and I didn't like golden path it by the sounds that you did.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite golden path it, but I had a time constraint that I was working to, so
Yeah,
I
you're
didn't
working.
perhaps
Yeah,
explore as much as I would have ordinarily done. But certainly also conscious of the fact that, okay, there's 100 of these pricks, and God knows where they are. They're pretty well hidden. So I'm going to wait for the guides to fill in that gap. All right, let's talk some story, because you've been pretty vocal on FTP so far that it's and social media as well, that's really hitting you in the
Yeah.
feels. I guess without delving too greatly into spoilers, because the game is still fairly fresh and people may not want that of us yet, so it's okay. We're not going to spoil the game heavily on you.
it's super easy just to sort of mention its tone, right, and like
Yeah.
its beats, and those beats are loss, grief, and fear.
Yeah. And
Uh,
there are these three different. So the whole thing, Kana is a spirit guide. She basically helps shepherd wayward spirits away, like help them to not just shoot,
to
get out
move
of here.
on, to
Let's
move
help
on
them
to
move
the
on, yeah.
like if they're stuck in this plane, her job is to help them get to the next, and that's by resolving any issues or challenges that they're currently facing in this world, and then connect them and send them on.
Yeah, and so you highlighted the three kind of emotional themes for each of the kind of key spirits that we deal with along the way. There is this overarching story about Kana needing to get to the top of the mountain, and she's got her agenda there, but I think what really takes center stage is those three stories along the way. Namely, I think the first two.
Yeah, the third one I liked as well, but like for me, I agree with you there. Like, so Kina is great in terms of the story that she's there for, but because she's in fact essentially a ferryman, right? That's kind of her entire bit. Having the stories focus on the other individuals, I found a much better design,
Yeah,
because each time, like, because she helps them get to the next space, so it should be about them. And once again, they even talk about it in the game, like, you can't connect with them too hard because your job is to help them move on.
Yeah.
So by having them in short little bursts, and like you connect with them, you help them get where they need to go, but it's not focusing on Kina specifically, is a big win. But then of course she still has that big long narrative throughout it.
Yeah, they just kind of piecemeal her story and kind of the way she conducts herself into these stories along the way. So she never takes center stage, but she's always she's always there. But we learn a little bit about her through the first act, or as we're dealing with the first spirit there, in terms of the way she kind of responds to these situations. And we learn a little bit more through the second. We learn a little bit more through the third, and as it all kind of comes to a head at the end there, it's nicely paced in that respect. And then it's just beating you over the head with, this is Kana, she's a good person, she does this and this and this, and now let's go and help these spirits. It's no, we'll learn about her gradually as we go.
Yeah,
and form endearment from that.
Yeah, and look, I'm a big sucker for these kind of stories to begin with, especially whether it be in traditional media or video games. I'm a big sucker for these kind of stories. I don't know why, they just hit me hard. In the same way that, you know, like I'm a sucker for father and son stories as well, because I'm a dad myself, and you know, and like loss and grief and those things are a big part of me, and like they're a lot where a lot of my fears are based, and where a lot of my emotions lie.
Yep.
So to have stories that hit them and deliver them really well is great. Now, because what I loved about Kina, apart from everything, as I've been saying,
Apart from all of
is
it.
like there was a little bit of subtlety in these stories.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like, you know, we can at least talk about we'll talk about the first
Yeah,
people
that's fair.
in some detail. That's kind of fair. You know, like there does come a point in time where you're going, oh, they're all spirits.
Yeah,
Like
it
we're
took
in
a while for
in
that
that
penny to
first
drop,
yeah, because like I'm watching them phase in and out around the world,
which is cool
and I'm
because they did
like,
it through gameplay as well.
they
It
did it through
wasn't just
gameplay, right? So, because one of the things that, because when you're being followed by like 90 rot, like they phase in and out as well because they themselves are connected to the spirit realm. So I'm wondering, how are these characters getting ahead of me? And then I'm watching them phase in and out, and then I'm noticing that the spirit that
Characters are
I'm
doing it. Yeah,
chasing are doing it as well, and I go, oh man, I'm helping a whole village here.
everyone's dead.
I'm like,
But
oh, that's fucking harrowing.
yeah,
You know, and then because in the first act you're meeting with two children and an adult, which you find out is their brother, and what I loved about that as well is, once again, this is a mild spoiler, probably kind of a big spoiler, but it at the end of that act when you bring them together again, because like the big focus on that one is grief, that I made a mistake. I wasn't there. I couldn't protect them. I couldn't save them.
yeah,
And then to at the end to have them meet up with each other again, and then to him have that realization of like, no, you didn't do wrong, dude. Like you're fine. Like we still love you.
yeah.
Let's get together. Let's go on together. That fucking hit, and here I was like, it's a mess.
Oh
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Oh yeah.
I mean,
Look,
it was it's certainly a touching moment. I was feeling the tug, but I
like
didn't quite.
I'm an emotional mess at the best of times, right? I am so and then admittedly I had just come off rewatching Sons of Anarchy, which is
Yeah, okay.
emotional trauma, and I was just raw, and it just hit me at the right time, I guess. But I'm just sitting here, I'm just like, I wasn't like bent over the table like hunch crying, but there was enough to be, there was like drops, and it was like, shit, man, like I didn't expect it to do this. Like I didn't expect
That's
it to be
fair.
unemotional, but I was like, I wasn't expecting it to hit these beats so well. And I said so almost subtly,
It is.
because
It's the subtlety that actually does it. It's because they're not
yeah.
trying to beat you over the head over this whole thing.
Hmm.
And this extends to every single one of those spirit stories, because it is just it's subtle. They're not trying to smash you with exposition and excessive amounts of dialogue or any of that sort of thing. It's just like, here's the story, and it kind of fades in and out, and it lets the gameplay take center stage when it needs to. And but again, the stuff that we noticed before with what your observation from before. Oh, hang on, they're all just phasing in and out. Their spirits, like, you're starting to connect these dots, and it's all starting to make sense. It's the way it all kind of coalesces at the end there.
And the benefit of it as well, like most games which center around a key protagonist, right? They'll have that inner dialogue, right? Or they'll just make witty comments out. Like, think Nathan Drake in any room he's ever been.
Yeah.
He just blurts out witty comments. Kina keeps quiet most of the time.
Yeah. Until
So
there's
it's
actually
not-
a cutscene where she's interacting with
Yeah, so it's not
somebody
as
or
if she's
something.
gone, "Ooh, why are they phasing in and out?" And I'm like, "That's a good point. Why are they phasing in and out?" Like, no, like I had to pick that up,
Yeah.
and like she's like, she talks to the rot or whatever, but it's not in the way of delivering that exposition. Like, not as if the games make you have game design normally has the player thinking that they're stupid. I think this respected that time so much more.
Yeah.
In
No,
the
I'd agree.
in the way of like, hey, we're gonna feed you the parts of the story that you need, and you can pull together a rest. And at the end, if you haven't picked it up throughout, you pick it up at the end, but it's not cramming it in your face.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. That word subtlety, that's the one that
Yeah.
just, it's subtle genius.
And that's what I love. And like I'm a sucker for drama. I'm a sucker for character drama, and this is that. but without that like soap opera character drama
Yeah, I'm
where
with
they
you.
cramp. You know, it is that like we'll give you enough and you'll pick, and then you go, oh
You can fill in the rest.
yeah, it
And
was
so it makes
cool.
those stories as they play out all the more impactful.
Yeah.
We're
So
trying to
good.
dance around spoilers for the most part, and we've
Yeah.
obviously given people a little bit for that first act there. But
No,
again,
we have to
don't stress
like
this.
yeah, the first
Yeah,
act is fine. Like you're talking like 2 hours or 3 hours of gameplay, not
yeah,
even.
exactly.
So yeah.
Are there any other thoughts? Anything else that we've not discussed that you wanted to flag about the game?
Because I talked about this in the episode of For the Players as well. I mentioned that I believe this is a Game of the Year contender, or at least for
Yeah, I'm
me
with you.
specifically. And once again, because the way that we do our reviews and the way we do our year in review as well over in our Game of the Years over at the Pop C is that we are, we're personality based, whatever, so we, although we do have critique like we've done here today, the critique is a bit more subjective.
Yeah,
It is about how we see it and how we see it. So like, will Kena Bridge of Spirits be an objective Game of the Year contender? For most, probably not. But for me, it will be. Because for me, it's more than just technically, like objectively, did the game play well? Did it do this? Did that? Like, no. For me, if the game made me feel like it made me feel something, it told a story that I gave a shit about. Like it hit a bunch of different ways that I find most games that would get Game of the Year won't.
yeah. I mean, I'd argue that more and more games are trying to go down that path, though. So I think and I
I'm
guess
talking
this is
on
a broader
average.
conversation than just Kana, but I think anyone who's kind of in that review cycle, that more traditional sort of review cycle, whether they're writing for a website or even if they're just YouTubers that are reviewing games through a format. Like I think we need to change the way we think about this because
Yeah.
how a game makes you feel, the impact it might have on your heart and soul is just as important as the way it feels to fiddle with the sticks and mash the buttons and that sort of thing. Obviously,
Yeah.
the act of playing is super important, but if they're trying to if they're trying to express some sort of a message, then I guess it's a key factor there as to whether you do or don't understand it.
Yeah, but I think that like
And
that's
relate,
I said
connect.
that is a bigger conversation because even though an example is like X amount of years ago, I gave Division 2 in my top 3 games of the year because of gameplay. The story was, but like the gameplay was so fantastic, and
Yeah,
Keena's in that same. Keena luckily hits both beats, right? So like when I look at when I sort of predicted what games are gonna make that Game of the Year list this year, I kind of don't see it make. As I said, I don't see it making the list for many outlets, many big
yeah.
outlets, I guess. But like I think where it matters is those individuals, and when you see places like Player Two, like us, like other spaces that we connect with here in the Australian gaming space at least, where these things are important, and what the individual thinks is also important as well.
Who'd have thought that it
And
was the cold Aussies that are the ones that are connecting most narratively?
yes, that's right. I mean that's how I see it anyway. Like that's how I see
No,
this.
I do agree with you.
Yeah.
It is super important to assess things through that lens and really consider that when you're even having these Game of the Year sort of conversations. And so, like yourself, for me, it's going to be in that conversation
Yeah.
for the similar sorts of reasons.
Because the same, because it goes back to the argument of review scores, right? Like, is this a 10? No, but it's one of my games of the year.
Yeah.
But like, if you were to go to IGN and do that, every comment section would be like, well, you gave this a 9 and you gave that a 7. Does that then make that game better? Like, well, go away.
Well, that's where review scores are flawed at the end of the day. There's some unquantifiable things that.
Yes, Kena is full of unquantifiable awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And obviously stuff that's actually going to impact people in different sort of ways as well. I mean, some people may have had experiences that then mean that the certain stories they're trying to tell really resonate.
Yeah.
Others may not have had those, and so or different variants of it, and it may impact them in a different way or not at all. And so I can understand how someone might look at and agree with us unanimously on everything else we've discussed, and then the story side they'll go, no.
Well, it depends
because
because
I don't have that.
there is a level of empathy and sympathy that is required to really hit this story, I think.
Yes.
And I do think that, one of the biggest conversations that came out of last year was Last of Us Part 2 and how people hated the story, but you needed to have empathy to understand that story. And I'm saying for some individuals in the gaming space, empathy is something that they don't have it. I was going to be subtle about it, but they don't have it. So for them, they're like, this game sucks. The game doesn't play well. Like, yes, but you have to feel, you have to know you feel something, right?
Yeah.
And if you've never look, if you've admittedly never lost, never had fear of loss, you've never grieved, you're not going to hit the same here.
Yeah,
And
that's
like
not
it's the same
necessarily
way.
criticism of the person either. Sometimes
No,
you've just been very fortunate to have not had to experience that stuff. And I mean, I'll put myself in that boat. I haven't had to experience a lot of those sorts of things, thankfully. Touch wood.
I have so.
But there's
But the
still
same,
an ability to open yourself up.
yeah. But
Or
even
let
that
yourself-
context, yes, being opening yourself up to feel that shit, right?
Yeah.
And same even goes for like what I did. One of my greatest games of all time is 2018's God of War, right? And you and I hit that because we are fathers. And
Well,
I
I
think
wasn't
that
at the time. That was a really important thing at the time, and it's something I still actually want to address. Is that I
Yeah.
haven't played God of War since having kids.
yeah,
That was 6 months before my first arrived, so I actually don't have that perspective yet. Now I still love the story and I love what it was going for, but there's certain narrative beats that they hit that at the time I just could not relate to. I knew that
Yep.
in 6 months from now I've got a baby coming. Like I knew that it was coming, but it's different. It's still a different feeling.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I don't have the months, years, whatever of experience with this child in my life to relate and connect in the same way that you did. Didn't mean that the story didn't impact me, but I think I was still more taken by, sorry people, spoilers for God of War, holy shit, the blades are back and all those sorts of things,
Yeah.
as opposed to...
See, but like to me, I know we're really sidetracking from Kena, by the way.
But these are
like
still, like it's all...
Yeah. But in that
part of the
scenario, with
conversation.
that particular scenario, right? To me, that was not just the blades are back. That was the blades are back, and he has to become who he was before his son, in order to help him, even though he wants to forget that part of him, right? Like, because there is that part of your life. There's pre-child and post-child, and parts of your
Everything
pre-child
changes.
life, everything changes, and sometimes you don't want to go back to who you were before then. And that's what that beat is. So, like, it's bringing it back to Kena. Like, if you've not lost a loved one, if you've not, lost a friend, or had to make decisions that, like, made bad decisions because of fear, or had that pressure on you to make those decisions, or what you believe are the right decisions.
People in your life that you're looking to look out for.
Like that, like then it just won't hit you as hard. So what I'm saying is, Kena rocked it.
Have kids,
It was amazing. Have kids. Well, maybe look.
Don't rush it.
Only if you want to. Like, only if you want to. Like, we don't want kids that.
Yeah, let's not overpopulate for the sake of it. That can create some issues.
Make sure you're ready to do it. It was a big part. But no, Kena's mad.
Yeah,
It's absolutely fantastic.
I completely agree. I can't believe we just managed to have a conversation about people whether they do or don't have kids. But let's call us the love guru. Gurus. So we're going to wrap things up there. Ryan, thanks very much for coming on and discussing Kena Bridge of Spirits. It is in both of our opinions clearly one of the games of the year so far.
Yeah.
Where should people go if they want to catch up with you and if they want to see what you're up to?
If you want to see what I'm up to, you can check me out on Twitter. That's at HaggardMC, HAGGARDMC. That's me personally. You can also see the work that I do over at the PopCulturists. I'm sure you put links in the description.
Yep.
The big thing that we do is for the players, the PopCulturist PlayStation podcast, one of the top PlayStation pods made in Australia. Each and every week we talk about PlayStation, its involvement in the world, and everything through that lens, but also through what we compared to the late night show of PlayStation podcast.
We had that conversation at one point. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, because it's very personality driven. It's light. It's comical. And then you may not get all the news for the week, but you get the stuff that we care about. You hear our opinions, and it's silly and it's fun, and it's not takes itself as seriously as some other pods.
So you hang out with the fans as well. So feel free to jump in and catch the show live on Saturdays.
Yeah, Saturdays at 4 p.m.
stuff.
So the show itself comes out on Monday mornings, 8 a.m. on YouTube. Podcast services 9 a.m. on YouTube.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, man.
No worries, friend. I think we're going to see each other very soon.
Yeah, possibly. Quite possibly. For the Player 2 side of things, you can catch me at Paul James Games. The website's Player2AU. Visit the website. The review is there. But otherwise, thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.